You jumped between meetings, answered messages from colleagues, worked on reports, and at the end of the day, you even forgot what you were doing. Your calendar, it says you only worked 6 out of the 8 hours. But your brain, it says you ran a marathon. You are not tired because you worked too long. You are tired because your calendar is lying to you. Now tell me, what do most of us assume when this happens? We assume we worked too long. Maybe the day was packed. Maybe we didn't sleep enough. Maybe we just need better discipline or time management. And on the surface, that actually sounds reasonable. Because when you look at your calendar, the explanation seems obvious. It shows a timeline of your day. 9 o'clock a meeting, 10 o'clock some work time, 11:30 another meeting. From the outside, it looks structured, manageable. But here's the strange part. Even people with a perfectly normal schedule, 8-hour days, reasonable workloads, organized calendars, usually still end the day mentally exhausted, not physically tired, mentally drained. And the reason for this is simple. Your calendar, it tracks time. But your calendar is not the one doing the work. Your brain is. And your brain doesn't run on time. It runs on load, cognitive load. For example, let's look at a normal workday. Imagine you have a 1-hour meeting. It starts at 10 o'clock. On your calendar, that meeting looks simple. Just one block, 1 hour. But your brain doesn't experience it the same way. Because that 1 hour actually creates multiple waves of cognitive load. The first one, it happens even before the meeting starts. Maybe at 9:30 or 9:40. Because your brain, it starts thinking about it. What's the topic again? What documents do I need? What was I supposed to prepare? You might still be working on something else. But part of your attention is already shifting. Your brain is allocating resources. And that's preparation load. Then the meeting begins. And whatever you were doing before, writing, analyzing, deciding, coding, it suddenly stops. Your brain has to switch context. Different topic, different people, different type of thinking, a different role. That switch, it isn't free. In psychology, this is often called attention residue. When part of your attention stays stuck on the previous task even after you have moved on. So now your brain is stuck doing two things. Trying to engage in the new meeting, while part of it is still finishing the work it just left. Then during the meeting, something else starts happening. You are not just listening. You are analyzing information, thinking about decisions, responding to questions, reading the room, planning what to say next. Your brain enters performance mode. That means social thinking and analytical thinking are running at the same time. Your calendar still says 1 hour, but your load meter is climbing. Then the meeting ends, and this is where the biggest lie of the calendar shows up. Because the meeting might stop, but the cognitive load doesn't. Now your brain has to reconstruct the previous tasks. What was I doing? Where was I in that document? What was the next step I had to do? That's another context switch. And on top of that, meetings usually create follow-up tasks. Send that file, adjust the plan, check something with a colleague. Each of those small, simple tasks, they create a new open loop in your mind. So that 1 hour block that showed up in your calendar looks a bit more like this for your brain. Preparation, switching, performance, recovery and follow-up. Your calendar still shows just 1 hour, but your brain, it used more like 2 or 3 hours of cognitive load. Now imagine that happening 4 times a day. Suddenly, the normal 8-hour workday starts to look a lot different for your brain. Not a workday, but a cognitive marathon. And now, this is where the perspective I learned as an engineer becomes useful. Because the mistake most people make is thinking in time. 8 hours of work, 1 hour of meeting, 30 minutes for a task, Time is linear, but cognitive load, it isn't. It's multiplicative. Every meeting, every interruption, every context switch adds more pressure to your system. And like any system with limited capacity, your brain has a throughput limit. When the input stays below that limit, everything feels manageable. You can focus, you can make clear decisions. You move through your work smoothly. But once the input starts stacking up, the system doesn't fail all at once. It degrades, focus becomes harder to hold. Simple decisions will take longer. And by the end of the day, the system runs out of space and you reach a point of collapse. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, but because the system itself just got overloaded. Systems like your brain, they rarely fail because of one big problem. They fail because small loads quietly accumulate. And this is exactly where your calendar is misleading you. Because your calendar, it only tracks when things happen, not how much loads they place on your system. So if the problem isn't time but load, the question itself becomes obvious. How do you actually manage it? Well, the first shift is simple, deceivingly simple. You start scheduling your load, not just time, because right now, most calendars treat every meeting the same, but cognitively, they aren't. Some meetings, they are light, a quick check-in, a status update. Others, they require much more of your brain, strategic discussions, problem solving, difficult conversations, escalation. These are all high cognitive load events. So one simple change is to start labeling them like that. Low load, medium load, high load, not for anyone else, just for yourself. And once you see them that way, one rule becomes obvious. Don't stack high cognitive load meetings or events one after another, because that's exactly how you overload a system. The second rule is a bit less obvious. It is to protect your recovery gaps. Right now your calendar probably looks something like this. Meeting 1 ends at 11, meeting 2 starts at 11. Cognitively, that leaves no room to recover. Just remember back a bit to what we just said about what happens with a meeting. Your brain still needs to close the loops, reconstruct the previous task, and clear that context. So instead of jumping straight into the next thing, leave small gaps, maybe 10 to 15 minutes for recovery. Not for email, not for messages, not for quick questions to colleagues, just for recovery. Just let your system decompress before the next load arrives, because it will. And the third rule is to reduce unnecessary switching. Because every time your brain jumps between different types of thinking, it burns extra energy rebuilding context. So whenever possible, group similar tasks together. Creative work, analytical work, administrative work. All together, clustered with the same types. This will reduce what we engineers call pipeline disruption. Constantly stopping and restarting your system. And finally, just a simple way to start noticing your load. At the end of the day, just ask yourself one simple but important question. What actually drained me today? Not what took the most time, but what created the most mental load? What did you catch your thoughts drifting towards every time? And most people will discover something surprising. It's rarely the duration of work that breaks you. It's the constant switching between it. So if your workday sometimes feels strangely exhausting, even when your schedule looks reasonable, now you know why. Your calendar, it shows time, but your brain runs on load. Every meeting, every interruption and every context switch adds pressure to your system. Even, or maybe especially, if your timeline looks structured. So when you only optimize your schedule for time, you will always feel like the day is slipping away from you. But when you start designing your days around your cognitive load, something changes, focus will last longer, decisions will become clearer, and work will stop feeling like a constant mental marathon. Because the real problem was never your discipline. It was the system you were working inside. Your calendar, it was never designed for how brains work. And once you start seeing that, you stop trying to work harder inside the day and you start engineering the day itself. If this changed how you see your day, don't stop here. Because understanding cognitive load is only the beginning. Watch the next video YouTube recommends right here and let's keep engineering your mind together.